All right, I thought this was kind of cool. And it's another testament to, a little bit of a broken record here, but I guess one of these stats I'm going to reference was a broken record, or at least a set record. Um, and that is the growth of the women's game, where there are NBA achievements being compared to WNBA achievements. I can't remember a time in the past that would have happened, particularly when you're talking about the stars that I'm about to reference here on the men's side. Because Luka Doncic and LeBron James are on the same team now, which is wild. It's still wild that the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers. I was like everybody else. I couldn't believe that news when I saw it. And it's also unbelievable the level that LeBron James is still playing at. And he's playing at an NBA MVP level in his 22nd season at 40 years old. We ain't never seen nothing like that, right? And those two, I guess, rather predictably, are doing well. Last night, they became the first duo in Lakers history to each record 30 points and 5+ made threes. So in Lakers history, that per Stat Mamba. Last year in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell became the first duo in WNBA history to both have 30+ points and 5+ made threes. So that is the volume and potency at which the Fever backcourt can deliver. It's been a minute since we've seen them in action, of course, and that second half of the season was just unbelievable. But, they're getting compared now statistically, and by the way, they're the only in WNBA. There is a difference between those stats. They're similar stats, but they're not the same, because on the Lakers side of things, that's in Lakers history, and on the Fever side of things, that is in WNBA history. But there's a reason. We've talked about Clark and Mitchell as the best backcourt in the WNBA. I don't really think that's up for debate. Offensively, it certainly is not even close to up for debate. But to see them, have a statistical profile that stacks up on the NBA side with NBA legends is pretty impressive, especially when you take into context that the WNBA games are shorter, which factors into the conversation. But, Luka and LeBron, that is some hella company, right? Like those are two, titans for sure. LeBron is in the GOAT debate, if not the GOAT to me. The three best basketball players on the men's side, I know I'll cause a diversion by saying this, are LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and Steph Curry. But just having those two get to those numbers is pretty crazy to see. And then and being on the same team, it's just wild to process. But to have WNBA players, specifically guards, which is another point I like to bring up. But remember that it is a league that has been dominated by bigs and hardly by guards throughout the course of WNBA history. There are a few non-bigs who have dominated the game, but there are hardly any guards who have dominated the history of the WNBA. And then now two of them are on the same team, where you have Clark as a playmaker and scorer and Mitchell as a bucket getter. Right? That's what Kelsey is born to do. She's born to get buckets, and she thrived alongside Caitlin Clark. Her speed is unbelievable getting down the court. She can't be loaded up on by the defense now with Clark there. And then Clark is able to facilitate and also kind of pick and choose the moments, right? And that's what happens with players who both need the ball. You've seen it with LeBron and Luka too. You saw LeBron did it earlier in his career with Kyrie and Dwayne Wade. They figured it out. But that's also a testament to both Clark and Mitchell, how quickly they figured that out, how quickly they got that rhythm going and really found their stride. And, toward the post-Olympic break, they were two of the top players in the league individually, and then in tandem, the best duo in the league, I would say. There are other really good duos in the league, of course. Notably, I think, one of the most underrated players in the WNBA right now has to be Kayla McBride of the Minnesota Lynx, and what she's able to do. And the fact that, she's on the same team as Nafisa Collier. You could certainly argue they're the best duo in the WNBA. The Liberty have a bunch of good players. Obviously, the Aces have some stars on their team as well. But when it comes to the backcourt, it's Clark and Mitchell as the Splash Sisters, as they were called. And then when you add in what they have now around them, the upgrades, it should only make their lives easier. I mean, because who was it that called him? I think it was Becky Hammond that called him a three-headed monster last year with Boston, Clark, and Mitchell. And not that that's untrue. You kind of had to pick your poison already with Clark and Mitchell. It was hard to take both of them away, if either of them away. I mean, then look, they had various struggles. Clark did not play her best in game one against the Suns. Same goes for Mitchell in the next one. But it was very rare as the season went along that they both weren't cooking. And now you're also getting upgraded personnel around them, which I think is going to make Clark's life easier in transition, those outlet passes. It's also going to make her choices more plentiful in the half court on the kickouts. And then Kelsey's going to be playing to an advantage even more than she already was. That's the thing. I think people, especially if the Fever are able to get defensive stops. It's one thing when you're taking the ball out of the basket and you got to bring it up and the other team can get back and they can set their half court defense. But if the Fever are taking the ball off the rim or in turnover and Clark has it and she's coming downhill and she's got Howard running and she's got Bonner running or spraying and she's got Mitchell with that speed down the floor and she's got the option to pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston and she's got the vision that she's got, what do? The defense would be on their heels the entire game in that scenario. The entire game, basically every game in that scenario is pressure. That's pressure. But I just thought it was, a cool little quirky stat. It doesn't obviously mean anything. Again, it's not the exact same stat, but a very similar historic stat. Luka and LeBron, the first in Lakers history. Kelsey and Clark, the first in WNBA history. And good company for both parties, right? For both duos. That is good company. And it's just increasingly cool to see the WNBA talked about as company for the WNBA or even competition at times, even though I don't really think it works that way. But I think you get what I'm getting at.